Oh crap! I think it went 1080p now. Well, I don't know. I think I closed TikTok and restarted it, so should be working now. How's it proven? So it's going to be like an indirect proof where we would say that denying God would lead to an inconsistency or the inability to account for logic, morality, or science. And so only the Christian worldview provides a coherent foundation for these things. So God exists because he's necessary for the very tools we use to understand reality. Without God, intelligible experience collapses. What's up, Clark?
Hello?
Hey, Clark.
You want to debate?
I don't know if that's a good idea because of your best behavior.
Why?
Because you've said vile things about Darth, so I don't think we should probably have you on here.
Why? What has he said?
Whenever he loses the debate to you, he then will say all the rumors. He just repeats all the rumors.
I wouldn't even call them rumors, call it the slander and defamation.
Yeah. Well, isn't that what a rumor is? I guess not necessarily, but typically.
They're just vile people. Even when I've dealt with people that I disdain, and I know that there are certain reports about some nefarious things in their personal life where there's not really a doubt, I don't bring it up because it's typically not germane, unless a specific instance were called for it. Look, it's just they just hate me because I'm effective in annihilating unbelief.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to address the first point. So it says atheism is irrational. So
Yeah.
what is atheism?
The standard definition of atheism in the English language and philosophical reference works is either the direct or the indirect denial of God.
Sure. So you can be not convinced that a God exists, right?
That's not the definition of atheism.
No, that is what atheism literally means by.
Okay, sir, listen to me. How old are you?
18.
Okay, I'm 63.
I don't care. You're not going to come from an argument of age.
Listen to me. If you're going to be rude, I'm going to eject you from the room.
I'm not being rude.
What you're doing, you are being, I'm telling you, you're being rude right now. That's strike 2. You get 3 strikes and I'm going to kick you. All you're simply doing is you're repeating the same thing. Have you read any scholarly papers on the definition of atheism?
Yes.
What was the paper?
I couldn't cite it right off the top of my head.
Okay, yeah, I don't believe you're 18 years old and you read a scholarly definition. Now, can you tell me what is one of the most significant problems in defining atheism as a lack of belief?
There isn't a problem. You're just not convinced.
Okay, so in other words,
How are you this retarded at 68?
Okay, all right, okay, you're done. Okay.
Wait, I didn't even get to ask my question.
Yeah, no, you're done.
You're being rude, but you're saying you're right because you're older than me.
No, you're done. You're done.
How does it feel being? Oh my god,
yeah, you're done. Yeah. Another 18-year-old teenager punk ass. So he doesn't even understand what a problem is. One of the major problems of defining it that way is it's ambiguous. It's not informative. Is your lack of belief the result of denial of God, or is your lack of belief merely because you have an absence of sufficient information? Okay. So yeah, I love these. I love these young atheists. They think they're so freaking smart, and they're not. They're just incredibly stupid. Welcome, TikToker. Do you accept God as your creator?
Yeah, I was just wondering, what objective proof do you have?
The only objective proof that we could give is a recapitulation of the revelation that God has given in creation, and the revelation God has given propositionally through the prophets, ultimately in Jesus Christ, codified, as I've said, propositionally in the Bible. When we look at that propositional content, it turns out that the attribute set that God reveals about himself is exclusive and indispensable.
All right, can you put that in layman's terms?
You there,
Sorry.
Doc?
Like simpler words. I'm a little tired right now.
Basically, God's revealed himself.
In creation and in human history, you're not going to have identifiable, defensible background information to say anything. Because then whatever you assert will be without final context, and therefore it won't mean anything. It'll be uninterpretable. So what I've given you is a performative transcendental argument. Okay? A performative transcendental argument is one that cannot be rationally denied on pains of incoherence or self-contradiction.
All right, I was just asking where the objective proof is.
Yeah, I just gave it to you. That the propositional content that represents the existence of the perfect self-revealing God in creation, and the propositional content of Jesus' self-identity claims are such that no other worldview can have that property set. Okay, so the property set of God is that which is omniscient, omnipotent, always truth-revealing, and being a salvific God. If you deny any of these central character, including God being triune, if you deny that, you're not going to have an ultimate referent that is perfect, that you can identify and ground, so that there is a basis for truth, reason, and intelligibility. Okay.
Here, I'll try to
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll try to like simplify it real quick in one sentence. Is that if you deny God's revelation, you won't be able to prove anything is true, because God is necessary for proving things.
Yeah. If you refuse to accept that the attribute set of God that he has revealed, if you refuse to accept that it is, or that he has revealed it, then you're going to be speaking out of a worldview where there is nothing identifiable that dictates what anything is. So without the attribute set of a perfect God, okay, if you attempt to speak, nothing will mean anything, because there's nothing within your model that dictates anything.
What if you believe in a different religion that believes in a perfect God?
Okay, well, in order to be a perfect God, you would have to have the attribute set that only the Christian God has.
Which is the omniscient, omnipotent,
Yeah,
omnipresent.
always truth revealing. Okay, so for example, Allah of Islam is not always truth revealing. He's not a salvific God. There's no plan of salvation. Also, the God of Islam is Unitarian. A Unitarian God cannot be perfect, because he cannot possess, he doesn't possess or actualize love, or cannot actualize relationality before creation, which is going to be required to be a maximally personal being. Okay, so the God of Islam was just simply a pathetic counterfeit of the God of Christianity, because Muhammad was only just making stuff up as he goes along. Okay, so there is no, when you look at all the gods that have been mentioned, very few of them have been creator God concepts, and those extremely few that are creator God concepts, they don't have all the perfect attributes of the God of the Bible. One of them, of course, being that God is ultimate. We'll talk about something being a God or even a creator, but even that God is not ultimate. All right, and ultimate means that everything that exists derives and depends upon God. Right? Only the God of the Bible has these attributes.
Ah,
See,
so you're saying that?
God has constructed his revelation of himself, both in natural revelation and special revelation, such that if somebody is humble and repentant and wants to know the truth, they will then readily see the objective proof for God's existence. But God has also constructed the world in such a way that if somebody wants to continue in their defiance and rebellion and their unrepentance toward God, that they will be led astray by their own gaslighting. Okay? It's a judgment from God. Once you reject the revelation of God, okay, God judges you by allowing you to succumb to being instantly deceived. Because you see, it's a truly dichotomous situation. Either the world is the product of God and is a revelation of God, or you will believe something else. But there is no something else to put on the table. So if you believe in something else, it will just constitute a figment of your imagination. So you may passionately believe it, but if you passionately believe it, you'll be believing it in violation of the criterion that you use to dismiss the God of the Bible. God did not construct the world in such a way where people couldn't deceive themselves or gaslight themselves. God constructed so that to the degree you reject his revelation, you will be deceived as a punishment. And one of the markers that you're deceived is that whatever you're putting forward, there's no way you're going to be able to give a rational accounting of it.
What about so are the people who were never introduced to Christianity and God being punished?
Everybody knows the true God. Everybody has the light of creation. They know God is perfect. They know they're unperfect and that they need to be right with God. God gives more light when people respond to the light. People who don't respond to the light, they don't get more light.
All right. So, if you don't believe in, are you saying you be immediately punished because you don't believe in Christianity or God, or is it like both?
Well, there's a difference between a temporal judgment and a eternal judgment. So when you succumb to the deception, it's a temporal judgment from God. God's not deceiving you. You're deceiving yourself. But God is not going to insulate you from deceiving yourself when you reject his revelation. So it's a temporal judgment from God because God allows you to succumb to your fantasy.
I think he's asking about the people that are born on an island that never read a Bible, have an opportunity.
Everybody, they have the light of creation.
Right. So, but I would say God would judge them based on what they know, not what they don't know. So they wouldn't have to know like the
And by
gospel.
the way, if they've never heard of Jesus Christ, right, and
Yeah.
they're only going to be put in jeopardy, then we shouldn't share the good news of Jesus Christ with them because now they're in jeopardy for rejecting what they've heard. But they're still going to be held accountable for God, okay? Because his judgments will be perfect. All right, I'll be back in a minute.
Yeah,
So
so
you mean it's actually kind of like harmful to spread the word of God to
no,
people who I don't know
no,
that to
it's
people who never heard of it, so they won't reject it.
no, it helps people.
My bad. I kind of misunderstood that last thing he said.
It helps people. It's not harmful to spread the word of God.
No, the very last statement he made. He said it jeopardizes them.
They're jeopardized either way. It doesn't matter.
All right, see you, man.
All right.
What?
Hurt people, hurt people. How is your God so different than the thousands of other gods? Well, one thing that's unique about Christianity is God saves us through grace, not through any works. And there's no fixed commandments or obligations aside from having like a relationship with like Christ, repenting, and then the Holy Spirit sort of guides us rather than we follow like a strict law. So there's no like intermediary between us and God. There's no like priest class. We have a direct relationship with God. Most religions, there's like a person or institution between you and God, and you're not saved by grace. They make you do stuff for salvation. So I think Christianity is sort of an anti-religion in that respect. It's unique. Well, you can have that opinion, Tony, but guess what? Guess what, buddy? There's my cat. That's just like your opinion, man. Oh, of course you own a cat. What are you, a cat owner? Disliker? Devils, that's true probably of another Abrahamic religion, but not Christianity. There's this other Abrahamic religion. It might not be. That might be what you're talking about. Yeah, no one wants to argue with me. The argument is the it must be pretty It's like really frustrating for the trying to go against precept. It's like impossible. Game over, atheists. Man, there's been this like crazy drama about a YouTuber and he's studying for his PhD, Wes Huff. He's like a historian, biblical scholar. And he went on Joe Rogan's podcast, which is the number one podcast on earth. And he made the claim that the Isaiah scroll from the Dead Sea Scrolls was a word for word translation with the Masoretic text. So, like, word for word, he's thinking like it meant 95% accurate. Because obviously there's slight differences, scribal errors, variants, and all this stuff. But like 95% accurate is like pretty. We don't ever expect a thing to be exactly identical word for word. So 95% accurate is like as word for word as like a document's gonna get. And so this like other big and Joe Rogan's like, wow, word for word, that's a miracle. And Joe Rogan thought it was amazing that the book was kept so accurately throughout that much time. And then this super big atheist YouTuber, he's got like 1 million subs, Alex O'Connor, he took umbrage with this, saying like, well, it's not word for word. It's only like 95% accurate. And at that point, you're just like quibbling and being petty. So it just started this whole battle about like, what does it mean to be word for word? It's also like, do you guys know when we say the Bible is inerrant? Do you guys realize we don't mean it's like perfect? Inerrant just means that like the main the main overall idea and all this, like a lot of the important supporting themes, are intact. There might be some like, because in the Bible, a lot of them, in Mark, when there's that added stuff, is it 16 maybe, at the end about like snakes, and you can, the snake handler verses, you know what I'm talking about. There's like a little thing in the Bible that says this was added later to the text. So we know that there's stuff added later to the text. We know like it's not 100% accurate, but we say it's inerrant because none of the like errors in the text is anything that's going to like really undermine the Christian worldview or like the themes, the ideas. No, that's infallible doesn't mean there's no single error. That's not what it means. Well, like we would say that the text is the infallible word of God and it's inerrant, but we don't say it. We're not. We know that there's like stuff added later. We know it's been changed. There's scribal errors. We're not saying it's like perfect. Well, the message of God like is gonna be. It's like God. The word. It's the word of God, and the word of God is infallible, and it's the inerrant. The Bible is inerrant, and the Bible is the word of God. I don't know. It's kind of complicated, I guess.
Hello?
Hello, welcome.
Yo, what do you mean Christianity is objectively proven? By what?
Um, a transcendental argument for God, like a philosophical proof.
There, first of all, there's a difference between philosophical debates and literal proven evidence. The transcendental argument is known to be one of the worst arguments for God in the first place, so I don't know why you brought that up. And
It's
second of
not.
all,
It's not the worst argument.
objectively proven has to be proven by something evidence-based studies like science or history, and it falls flat on its face when it comes to that standard. So what objective standard was it proven by?
Gods. So the idea is that like
Oh, okay. I guess it got proven now.
God. Yeah, you can laugh. So like when we're talking about God, God's not just a normal fact. God is a standard of truth. So we would prove him by comparing like systems of truth. And I would show you that like only my system of truth is coherent, and your godless system or your non-Christian system is busted, doesn't work, incoherent, contradicts itself.
Talking to me?
Yeah, so like I have a system of truth in Christianity that's functional and coherent. Yours doesn't work. That's the truth. That's the proof. Right? It's like I
Can
can
you hear
say
me?
Jesus is the truth. Mm, yeah.
Bro,
I can say
I don't know about that one.
well, I don't know how you argue against it because in Christianity the truth is like a person that reveals himself to us so we know the truth. Like science doesn't tell us what the truth is, and logic and reason doesn't tell us what the truth is, so you wouldn't even know what the truth is.
Well, if you're it just depends what your definition of truth is. If your definition is freaking the truth is Jesus, then I guess that's your truth, but that's not most people's truth. There's a more general version of truth. Truth is just something that is how reality is, you know what I mean? So if you're saying that Jesus is true, how are you going to true as God? How are you going to try and prove that?
by God. So the only way we can know God is if God takes the initiative to reveal himself to us. So that's the proof. God reveals
So where is he at?
in the Bible. It's his word.
Okay, well, there's a lot of books out there that says it's God's word. So why is that one correct?
Because the Christian Bible is the only one that's like the coherent system, right? None of the other.
Like philosophically, or what? Because, like I said earlier, scientifically and historically, it's not coherent. But what do you mean coherent? It's the only one that's coherent.
Necessary to do science. So you couldn't do science without the claims of the Bible being true, for example.
How?
Science relies on inductive reasoning, and inductive reasoning can only be justified through the claims of the Bible.
If we want to use deductive reasoning, I would say it's more against, I would say, the Christian God, pure
No,
from deductive reasoning.
you wouldn't be able to, like, how would you make sense? You wouldn't be able to do inductive or deductive reasoning without the Christian God.
Okay, I mean that's just not true. You said you can't do reasoning without the Christian God.
Yeah, that's my argument.
Okay, well that's an unfalsifiable claim that is intellectually dishonest if you stay on that.
You can
But I can say
falsify.
that oh, if you don't believe in what I believe, because what I believe is the reason for truth in the first place. So if you way, that's just stupid and dishonest.
You could falsify my claim by like giving me like a system or like a standard criteria determine what's true that doesn't reference the Christian God.
Okay, well, you say God is all good.
Yes.
You think, okay, that could be a possibility if good itself was not subjective. And I'm not even talking about morality right now. I'm just talking about good itself. That's kind of subjective. So how could something subjective be, how can something absolutely subjective even exist? It's kind of incoherent unless if you say good is objective.
There has to be an objective good
How
because,
could there be an objective good though if good is subjective?
well, the good would be the will of God, and God is the ultimate objective absolute.
Okay, do you know what I'm saying though? It's like saying something is all good in reality makes no sense if subjectiveness, is subjective. That means that it differs among just different people, right?
Yeah,
So I can say that, this table is good, right? And other people can agree, but not everyone will agree, and no one can disprove or prove whether the table is necessarily good as people would say it is. You know what I mean?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't believe in subjective good. There's a objective good. You
Okay,
can't.
well that's the problem I'm saying. I'm like, if there is an objective good, and this is different from morality, okay? I'm just saying good, as in maybe that pizza is good or something just is good. How are you gonna try and prove that is objective? Like, how can you prove that a tree is objectively better than maybe another tree? You can't because it's subjective.
Well,
So unless you can prove somehow that goodness and badness is objective, then there's no way that God being all good can even make sense in reality.
Well, God is all good because God has all the what we call great making properties. Like he's omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. He never lies. So, because of the like, that's why we say God's good. He's all loving.
Okay, well that's going into evidential. Like now you gotta, if you're saying that, then you gotta somehow prove that was true. But
Well,
I'm being more like deductive. Like,
then-
how are you gonna prove just goodness itself is objective instead of saying, oh, God never lies? That's more like inductive. You know what I
well,
mean?
because there's a relationship between truth and goodness, and if goodness isn't real, then truth isn't real. So goodness
Well,
is real, external to our minds. For truth,
well,
external to our life.
uh, if you're saying that truth, you're saying that truth is like exactly the same with goodness, which is not necessarily true. by itself. Like, for example, like
I don't say
what's true for like
it's the
we
same.
can just think up of analogies or examples right now. Like
I didn't say it's the
the
same. I said they
the
need.
Earth is a sphere. That is objectively true. The Earth is a sphere. So what is that good or bad? Well,
No, I'm saying they depend on each other. Like language depends upon words, and words depend upon language. You can't have one without the other.
exactly. So what I'm trying to say is that objectiveness is real whether we have a language for it or not. But subjective, like it just depends on context and situation, correct? So something being good depends on the situation and context. For example, food. If I ate something yummy, I could say that is good, but then someone can have
Talking
the
about
same
like
thing and say that's bad, right?
talking
Okay,
about
well then who's right? Well, there's no objective right or wrong. It just depends on the individual.
we're not talking about preferences though. We're talking about like
Well, that's what good means. It's literally just a preference.
no, it can't. If
How
that's
can it not?
because that's a contradiction to do that.
Yeah, it is a contradiction to say something
Yo, 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 what up?
Oh, what's up?
So, I want your opinion on Christianity. I want to hear what you think about it. I want to hear your opinions.
I think it's like Christianity's lit. I think Jesus is really cool. Everyone should like model themselves after Jesus and try to be like Jesus.
Really?
Absolutely.
You know what I think?
What do you think?
Number one, nigger pews.
Oh no.
Two,
I don't think you can
little
say-
loaded. Little loaded.
I don't think
Number
you can say-
three,
Yeah, you're not allowed to say that. Whoa.
Yo, why did you kick me?
It's
You got
good.
tired of philosophy?
I give other people a chance.
All right.
'Cause you're just like nonsense. You're not like understanding what you're like not
No,
listening.
you don't. You're not understanding what I was trying to say. I know it's pretty philosophical, so maybe you weren't getting it. So maybe we should go to science. How does science prove the Bible?
You are too arrogant. You need to humble yourself. Welcome, Silo.
Hey P Mars, how you doing today?
Doing well. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing all right. So the problem with that last guy's argument is he didn't correctly define subjective. He was saying, I think he said something along the lines
He's
of,
talking about like I like pizza. Well, I'm talking about like it's wrong to like hurt, like murder someone or something like that, right?
yeah, no, he doesn't have a proper definition for subjective. I don't think he knows what objective means either.
Yeah, he was pretty lost. And he was trying to-
He was trying to argue that God's morality isn't objective.
Is that what
But-
you're saying?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I got out of it. And then what I kind of started to see is that God's morality is definitely objective because it's binding to everybody. It's not
It's
up to
universal.
personal opinion, right?
Yeah, if I disagree with God, that doesn't change what God says, right?
Yeah, so he was pretty much he presented a false premise and it just fell flat on his face.
I told him God's the objective absolute and just ignored that. So they just ignore what they do is they just ignore what you say and they go blah 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 blah. Like
And then
they're to
yeah,
teach
he wasn't making much sense. So once you were like telling him like, "Oh, can you elaborate on that?" He was just trying to demean your intelligence. He was like saying something like, "Oh, I know it's philosophical. You may not be able to understand it." Like I don't
He
get
didn't
that.
understand philosophy. He's just a weirdo.
I just think he's really ill-equipped for that conversation. Maybe he could do a couple Google searches and
Yeah,
find out the definitions.
that's the problem with pre-sub is it goes over these people like they can't understand it because we're not just talking about like God's not just like this normal fact. He represents like a standard for facts.
Hey, why are you misrepresenting me, huh? Why are you making stuff up?
I'm not making stuff up. You said what
Yeah, you are.
I recapitulated what you said.
Well, then you must have been living on another planet when I was talking, because I was not saying anything about morality. I even said multiple times that I was talking about goodness and badness. I'm not.
Isn't that what morality is?
No, it's not. You might think those are the same things,
No.
but they're not.
That's just you're just playing word games.
Yeah,
No.
I don't think that. I don't think that makes sense.
Okay, here, I can use examples if you want.
No, you're just playing word games. Use words like normal people.
Bro, I'm just playing word games. Okay.
You just
I
said
guess you-
goodness and badness isn't morality.
Look, do I need to say it for the fourth time already? Morality
I heard you the
and
first time.
okay.
Wait, am I going nuts or something? Wasn't he just up here saying God's morality is subjective? Wasn't he just
I wouldn't try to make sense of anything that guy says. I think we just move on. He's totally nonsense.
like I'm confident that he was talking about morality and now he's just twisting it. I don't
Good
know.
and bad isn't morality. What? We were talking about morality.
Yeah, I said something like I said what he was arguing, and instead of just agreeing with me, he said, "Oh no, I'm not talking about morality. I'm talking about goodness and badness."
I was talking about morality.
Yeah, I don't know what this guy's talking about.
He's just a goof.
Like that doesn't seem very honest because I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but goodness and badness is considered morality. So I don't.
Typically, yeah. When we're having like a debate, I mean, if you're talking about whether you think pizza's good, that's not the same thing. So he's doing like an equivocation argument.
Interesting. All right.
Well, hello there.
Welcome.
I have a question.
Sure.
If God wants us to know that He is real, why wouldn't He just imbue us with this knowledge?
He did, but you just reject him because you're a little pussy.
That's awfully funny, but no, I do not know He's real. I know that's what you were taught and brought and believed in, but that's not in fact true.
Okay, well you
Also,
live.
that's the first time I heard a Christian say pussy. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Do you even know what that is?
Well, the thing is, you act and you reason as if God exists, whether you admit it or not, because He's like necessary to even speak. So
How what? Say that again.
God is necessary to even talk. So
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
sorry. Are we talking to an 8-year-old? Can you please explain to me that logic?
well, you have to be 18 to be on the live.
You're dumb as fuck, my man. Restate what you meant. It made no sense.
If you say I can't. I could get banned.
Yeah, no, we can't talk to 8-year-olds on the live.
I can't talk to 8-year-olds. I could get banned for talking to 8-year-olds. He thinks I'm making a joke. I wasn't.
And I know the truth is hard to swallow, but
Can I get?
I'm pretty sure we can reason without your God. If you're going to argue that that is your God, then I would say okay, but it's not a personal God. It's a
Okay, but
Spinoza's God.
You have to say you're 18 and you're not 8 years old.
I said you're 8 years old with that logic.
Okay, so why can't you just say you're 18? Because that's for TikTok.
To get your panties unbound, I'm 23. How old are you?
I'm 42.
Really? You don't
I'm
sound
nearly
like it.
twice your
You
age.
sound mentally incapable.
I'm old enough to be your father, dude.
Wait. That leads to a question, actually. Back to the Bible, okay? Back to the Bible. What do you think should happen to people that would tear up the Bible? And then what do you think should happen to people that would tear up the Quran?
We should pray for those people.
Okay. Do you think there should be any legal repercussions?
No.
Oh,
No.
okay. Look at that. You're actually reasonable.
That's a stretch.
Well, that would just
It's
be
a stretch.
Uh-huh. You got any other questions?
Maybe in a minute, but I gotta grab something.
Okay. How did how the hell are you an atheist? Like, don't you want to believe in evidence? What are you
I
doing with
gotta
that?
run, but tell you what, let's do
Atheism
this
is like
instead. Roll it up into a
atheism is
tight
like
wad and shove it so far up your ass that you can't even
Oh,
speak.
okay.
Have a good one, faggot.
wow, you can't say those words. Why are you so hateful?
Oh,
Wow.
he really had to wait till the end of the interaction to talk like that. Oh,
Yeah.
that just says a lot about who he is as a person.
Maybe they were 8 years old. Well, that would be an excuse. That would make sense if they were 8 and like an 8-year-old did that. Well, maybe 8's too young. Maybe like a 12-year-old, something like that.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember being 8. Did I talk like that? Maybe I did. Definitely not 23. Welcome, Feet.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry. I'm 18, by the way. Just
Excellent. Thank you.
okay, yeah, now I can see it better. Christianity is objectively proven. How?
I do a transcendental argument for God. It's kind of like a philosophical proof, so sometimes so hard people to like wrap their mind around it, but
Philosophy doesn't have an answer, bro. That's
right.
the point of philosophy.
So actually, that's kind of what I argue. I go because philosophy and science can't like get us anywhere. Then we have to sort of submit to this idea that God entered, revealed Himself in creation and human history, and Abraham, Moses, and Jesus. And if you deny that, then you can't even know what reality is. So
You know, I've learned, I had a philosophy class last semester, and we
yeah,
learned like the four types of like, I don't remember the word exactly, but it was like philosophy, science, religion, and it's the word is in French, so and I cannot translate it in English. It's like witches, witchcraft, and aura type,
Paganism?
magic.
something like that. It's like tarot card.
Yeah, it's like paganism, witchcraft, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that. And one of them is based on observation, like two of them based on observation, two of them is based on like questioning, and one side is rational and the other side is effective. Uh, on the religion side, it's effective. It's not rational. So I don't understand why you would say atheism is irrational. Like, it doesn't make sense. If you say religion is irrational, that would make more sense, actually.
Because if think about like, if God designs your mind and He designs like everything, and you could trust the way your mind operates, you could trust your reasoning, it would make sense. It's all designed. But if your reasoning isn't designed and your reasoning is the product of an accident, then there's no reason to trust your like cognitive faculties, and that's like a huge problem. So that's what we argue, that
I don't understand what you mean. And also, I just want to say, atheism is not agnosticism. I'm sorry, I mixed up the two.
right. Well, they're the same thing if we actually look at it, do a conceptual analysis. But the idea is that like, let's say uh you asked me like your age and I guessed your age and I accidentally guessed your age correctly. I didn't
Age?
like they're just an example hypothetical. Like if
No,
you
but what did you say? Age?
yeah, age. If I guessed how old you are, I got lucky. That wouldn't be knowledge, even though I was correct. I just
That
lucky.
would be luck and statistics, probably.
because it's an accident. So knowledge has to be like, I have to have a reason. Like, but if I had your driver's license and your driver's license says your age, and then you ask me how your age, I go, oh well, you're this age, and I would be justified. It would be knowledge because I'd have a reason to think you were that age.
Yeah.
So if the idea is that our reasoning can't be accidental, but if you're not designed by God, you would be the product of an accidental universe. And if you're the product of an accidental universe, then you can't reason because the source of your reasoning would be like an accident. Like if the source.
That doesn't make no sense. Anyways, like it's
Alright.
because there was like possibilities and it was like such a small possibility that we could exist and it happened and now we are human beings and we have a brain that functions and with that and years and years of evolution
That's
of
blind
knowledge.
faith. You have blind faith. You just believe your reasoning functions, but you don't. If you're an atheist or you're not a Christian, there's no reason to think your reasoning's accurate. That's how we objectively prove God.
Huh? Like if
You
2
have
plus 2
blind
equals
faith. You have no evidence to think your reasoning's accurate. So that's how we prove God, because God's necessary for the evidence to trust your reasoning.
you believe in God. I don't. How can you
Yeah.
prove to me that it exists? You didn't prove anything right now.
Because, like, for you to even talk, God would have to exist, because you couldn't talk in a non-God model of reality.
In on-God known reality, I believe there is no God. So the reality I am in, I don't believe God created it. So if you say, well, you wouldn't exist if God wasn't there, it doesn't work.
I don't think you're understanding.
If it was true there was no God, then there'd be no reason to think there would be like order in the world, order in reality. And if there's no order, there has to be order in the world for you to like talk, because you say the same words consistently in a regular way. You form your mouth the same way to form the same sounds in a consistent, and it happens at the same time over and over and over again.
Talking?
Yeah, even talking proves God, because you can't talk in a non-Christian model of reality.
What is a non-Christian model reality?
Just any model of reality that doesn't accept like Jesus Christ as God.
That doesn't make sense, bro.
It does, because we understand the world through a story, and the story where God creates the world and God endows the world with order, it makes sense that we can have this conversation. But if you deny that God creates the world and endows it with order, and everything's just random chaos, there's no reason to think that we could communicate accurately or think accurately, and everything becomes absurd. So you can only deny God's revelation upon the pain of absurdity.
Have you ever heard of science?
Yes, I've heard of science. Science necessitates God's revelation, because science requires the order in the world. She's not a native English speaker, by the way.
Yeah, she's not understanding.
And she's young. She's only 18.
Yeah, when you say something doesn't make sense, it either means it's unintelligible or it doesn't cohere to a proposition. So I doubt you're saying that what he's saying is unintelligible. So if you don't believe something, and you passionately don't believe that it's true, and somebody advances that it is true, you're going to go, oh well, that doesn't make sense. But that's only in virtue of a pre-commitment to a proposition. So then what's the proposition that you're holding to that would render the Christian worldview not to make sense?
But there's also like, it's not necessarily those two. It can be like it doesn't have any links together, and if you try to logically think about it, it doesn't.
What do you mean it doesn't have any links together? What does that even mean?
What do you mean? The world makes us talk, and if we didn't have God, we wouldn't be able
Okay,
to
so
talk. What
all
does
right,
that
so
mean? That
let me
means
try
nothing.
to explain it to you in the form of a dichotomy, A or not A.
A or
In
not
the,
A?
yeah, okay. So in the Christian worldview, we have the triune God is a single, concrete, ultimate causal principle for everything. The mind, the purpose, and the plan of God, who reveals himself in creation, okay, is that single causal principle. When you reject that the mind and plan of God is the single causal principle for everything in the world, then you're going to be operating that something else actualizes or causes and sustains all of the order in the world. So what would that be? Well, the answer is you've got nothing. So your worldview literally is not coherent, because when you talk about unity, diversity, when you talk about things having correlativeness or connectiveness, there's nothing within your model that secures that. You just take it for granted that these things are true without God. But you have a gaping hole in your system. What is the something else that secures these foundational principles?
Well, the brain
The answer is
developed in three parts. Like the first part was instinct, survival instinct, and then there was the
no.
second
You're not getting where I'm not talking about biology. I'm talking about everything that you can imagine. Okay? In the Christian worldview, the mind and plan of God secures what is and cannot be, including unity and diversity, including order alongside disorder. Okay? Now, when you reject the self-revealing God, then you have some explaining to do in order to establish that you have a viable system or a model. What is the something else that secures the fundamental parameters of existence? The answer is you got nothing.
evolution.
You're not okay. You're not getting this. First of all, evolution is not a fact. Number two, evolution is a materialistic philosophy pretending to be science. The so-called evidence for evolution is beyond weak. The fossil record does not support Darwinian gradualism. The idea that random...
Wait.
Go ahead.
What's your source? Let me look it up.
Oh, I could quote to you directly Dr. Eugene Koonin, one of the world's greatest experts on evolution and microbiology, where in his own highly technical book, Defending Evolution, documents within that book that the fossil record is an abysmal failure to support Darwinian gradualism. This is not a commonly known fact about the fossil record because it's not taught until you get to undergraduate or graduate school.
They'll just say it's an anomaly or something.
Okay.
Can't you see evolution? Can't you just look at like how we changed as a society from like a record when it was
listen, you have to distinguish between what the facts actually are, the sense datum, versus the extrapolations or conjecture pretending to be facts. Now, the fossilized creatures that we have, even from an evolutionary perspective, they appear abruptly and they disappear abruptly without vast numerous transitional forms. Okay? This is a massive problem for the theory of evolution. So they generally don't have a viable explanation for the problem, so the problem is ignored. You see, you're not even aware of the problem until I just told you.
I don't understand what the problem is there. Because you're using
fossil record, I'll repeat it to you again. The fossil record, I'm trying to educate you. I was studying this long before you were even born, okay? So it doesn't make me right and you wrong, but why don't you just listen a little bit more and you'll learn.
No, I know, but
fossil record, I'm trying to explain to you, okay, that it is a well-recognized fact among those people who have a great depth of educational acquirement about paleontology, is that the fossil record does not exemplify transition, it exemplifies stasis. But this is not taught to the general public. It's not taught in the school systems. When you go to museums and you look at books, you see museum depictions or artistic renditions that these creatures evolved. But these are just imaginative. There's no way to look in the fossilized remains. If evolution were true, what you would expect to find is that there would be at least some a good amount of transitional forms. They're just simply not there. This is a look. This is a fact in paleontology. Do you want me here? I'll read it to you right now. I'll pull it up right now. I will read you one of the greatest experts on evolution. Just give me a second.
Okay.
I'm almost there. Okay, this is from, and you can write this down. This is from page 37 from a highly technical book defending evolution from a microbiological level by the eminent scholar Dr. Eugene Koonin. Dr. Koonin is an anti-creationist, anti-intelligent designer. He is a staunchly pro-evolution, right? Here's what he says.
What book, sorry?
Okay, so it's called The Logic of Chance by Dr. Eugene Koonin. The general lack of transitional forms between species in the fossil record is a constant theme in evolutionary biology. Charles Darwin recognized this problem and traditionally interpreted it, along with paleontologists in the Darwinian tradition, as just simply a reflection of the dramatic incompleteness of the record. However, extensive accumulation of paleontological data in the 20th century helped very little, if at all. So a different perspective emerged in the quantum evolution concept of George Gaylord Simpson, a major name in evolutionary biology. Then in the full-fledged form of punctuated equilibrium by the concept of Stephen Jay Gould and Niles Eldredge, two huge names in paleontology. Gould and Eldredge collected extensive evidence indicating that the history of the great majority of animal species, as reflected in the fossil record, represent mostly stasis, that is, a virtual lack of change. Okay?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't understand half the word you're saying because they're technical words used in English.
Okay. So the bottom line is this. The fossil record, when looked upon as a whole, is an embarrassment to Darwinian gradualism. In Darwinian gradualism, you have a tree of life, okay? You have a universal common ancestry of animals that's depicted like a growing tree from a single seed, right? And then you have these multiple branches, and then more branches and more branches and more branches.
Mm-hmm.
The fossils that we have, okay, are only what we would call the tips and nodes of the so-called phylogenetic tree. There are not numerous intermediary species found in the fossil record. Now, occasionally you'll come across an odd creature in the fossil record, and they'll characterize that as quote-unquote transitional. But that is not the same thing of finding numerous transitional forms between the examples in the fossil record. So the fossil record, if you talk to any honest paleontologist, even one who is anti-creationistic and pro-evolution, if they're honest, they will admit to you the unbelievable lack of fossilized remains support of numerous transitional forms. They're just not there. But
that
you
would
see
have been a novel prediction Darwin would have made, that there was going to be this fossil support that never took place. And then rather than science,
Darwin hoped by the
idea,
time Darwin hoped in the future that future discoveries, archaeological digs, would uncover numerous transitional forms in the fossilized remains. It never happened. Other than a few odd creatures, the problem that was true in Darwin's day is still true. But the general public is not taught this. You only learn about it either at undergraduate or graduate school if you're studying paleontology. Another problem is this. In order to have evolution to be true, you have to have random mutations accumulate in a line or in a linear path in the DNA in order for it to build coding sequences for proteins and other regulatory functions. A single protein is on the order of 1 in 10 followed by 200 zeros because of its very unique path. If we calculate the odds for evolution producing the entire genome of the animal kingdom, you're talking of 1 in 10 followed by tens of thousands of zeros. But they're not going to teach you that in school because they don't care. Once somebody drinks the Kool-Aid and accepts that evolution happened, they don't care whatsoever how astronomically improbable it is. That problem is called the combinatorial problem, and it's all but ignored in teaching evolution. Okay?
But
now,
maybe
your problem, I'll say one more thing. Your problem, like other people's problem, is this. You cannot bring yourself to believe that all of these smart scientists could be wrong. But what you don't know, and I was just reading about it in another book discussing evolution, is most of these people are deeply committed naturalists and materialists. Okay? So there's very little evidence supporting evolution, but they're driven by their naturalistic and materialistic outlook on life because evolution, the theory of evolution is all they've got because the alternative to special creation is an abomination to them because they're naturalists, they're atheists. Now, not all evolutionists are atheists, but many people in the scientific community who embrace it are naturalists and materialists.
But first of all, how could they find every fossils of everything that existed? Like we probably
They
have.
don't have to. They don't have to find that. The point that you're missing is this: is if evolution was true, why is it that we don't find vast numbers of transitional forms? We don't find them.
There are transitional forms that
No,
are
okay.
found.
Listen to me. I'm not trying to be rude. You sound like a thoughtful young lady, but you don't know what you're talking about.
Why do you say I don't know what I'm talking about?
You don't know what you're talking about.
I'm just like stating obvious facts that like even a 10-year-old could understand.
You may be repeating what is popularly taught
No.
about evolution. Look, let me ask you this question.
Yeah?
Why do you believe evolution happened?
Because it's logical.
How is it just because something seems to be logical doesn't make it true? Is it logical to believe that something that is so astronomically improbable that it's virtually impossible? Look, Dr. Eugene Koonin, let me show you here what he says here. Give me a second.
And also about the scientist. At school, I'm learning that science is something that is like perfection over time, and lots of very smart scientists were wrong about their theory, but also kind of right. And it was just like a basis that other added to it, and then it went into like modern knowledge of science, and it still gets more detailed. So I don't know why you're saying that. I wouldn't know that because it's literally taught at school. I don't know. Maybe it's been a long time since you went to school and they didn't teach you that then.
Well, we argue against what they teach at schools.
But you told me that.
Okay, all right, listen carefully. If I told you that evolution on this planet happened by random mutations aided by selection process, if I said it's virtually impossible to happen in a very old and big universe, what would you say?
Sorry, what was that?
The idea of evolution happening in an old and large universe, I said if it's virtually impossible to occur in a large and old universe, what would you say to that?
That it's very, very low chance of happening.
No, I'm saying, do you accept that it's virtually impossible to occur?
Uh,
Virtually impossible means it's as close to impossible as it gets
yeah,
without being impossible.
yeah,
Would you agree with that?
yeah.
Okay, good. Then there's no reason to believe in evolution.
You just said it yourself. It's not impossible.
You're not understanding. Virtual impossibility equates to what is called effective impossibility. We're not talking about possibility as a mere stat on a piece of paper. We're talking about statistically speaking, it's as close to impossible as it can get mathematically quantified.
Yes, but
You
it
know
is
what?
not
Okay,
impossible.
okay. This is going over your head because experts in probability and statistics will tell you that once a significant and meaningful event has a higher improbability above the probability bound, which is like 1 in 10 followed by 50 or 60 zeros, it's effectively impossible. Okay, it's called beyond the probability bound. 10 to the power of 50 or 60 zeros. Okay? Now, evolution, if we calculate what mutations, the very precise biological password that would needed to produce the entire animal kingdom, you're talking about 1 in 10 followed by tens of thousands of zeros. So you see, you have a very naive look on it when you say, well, there's still a chance. Not effectively or isn't. This is why Dr. Eugene Koonin, here's what Dr. Eugene Koonin says. The spontaneous emergence of complex systems, and by that he means evolution, right? The spontaneous emergence of a complex system as opposed to creation, right? The spontaneous emergence of complex systems that would have to be considered virtually impossible in a one-off finite universe becomes not only possible but inevitable in a multiverse. So in other words, what he's saying is if you try to imagine evolution happening even in a gigantic, very old and unimaginably big universe, it's virtually impossible. But if you throw in a multiverse where you have, let's say, an infinity of universes, then it becomes inevitable. But you see, throwing in a multiverse is a form of special pleading. Now, this is coming from Dr. Eugene Koonin. He said, without a multiverse, evolution, the emergence of complex systems, would have to be considered virtually impossible. If I told you that let's say Elon Musk came to you.
The Nazi one?
You know, I'm about to kick you off here because that was not a Schnazi salute. Okay, what
Okay.
you repeating? Okay, no, he's not a Schnazi. What that was is he was tapping his heart, and you can see that on the video. And then he throws his arm out there with his hand upright, like he's throwing his heart to them. We have videos and photographs of Democratic candidates doing exactly the same thing. Hillary Clinton, the former vice presidential candidate, Tim, and there's a number of other high political figures like Nancy Pelosi and others who have done exactly the same thing. You see how gullible you are?
Can you show me the videos?
But you can see if you
can
watch an extended clip.
all you have to do is Google it. Okay, I saw these pictures. Do you actually believe? Do you have good reason to believe that Elon Musk is a Schnazi?
No.
Okay, then you need to apologize for falsely accusing him of a political association which he doesn't associate with or agree with. That was not a Schnazi salute. He was tapping his heart and then throwing his arm out like he was throwing his heart to the crowd, and it just so happens that his arm was in a vertical position.
I don't know.
Okay?
He did 2 times.
Okay,
And
so to listen to me. It is despicable for you or anybody else to impugn him as deliberately giving a Schnazi salute. That's not what it was.
how do you know? Are you in his head?
Okay, you know what? I'm about to kick you off Because you're just showing me what low information intelligence you're displaying right there. How
I'm
do
just
I
asking a
know?
question.
Because okay, you know what? You're done. You're done.
Bro, I'm asking a question. Why are you
No, you're
mad?
done. You're done. You just demonstrated to me you're a completely dishonest individual.
It's because they don't watch the extended clip. He literally says right after
To sit there and if you think that he gave a Schnazi salute, where did you get that? From some leftist TikTok 10-second video? You see how gullible people are? If you were to listen to Elon Musk's views on politics and economics and all that kind of stuff, there is no reason whatsoever to think that he's a Schnazi. In fact, he bought TikTok in order to facilitate that there would be free speech on not TikTok, Twitter. But you know what? I confronted her in her error. She did want to humble herself and admit that she was actually wrong in impugning Elon Musk. So you're going to be that way? Then you can get out of here. Welcome, my godson.
Hello, Godfather.
Godfather, may your first grandchild be a masculine one like the one in your baby picture.
Darth, I just got kicked out of Tone Loke's room. Does he mod liberals or something?
He has a tendency to mod some unhinged control freaks.
Yeah, I noticed.
Yeah, that's happened to me on multiple occasions.
Gee, yeah.
Adam, welcome. What would you like to say?
I was just going to talk about evolution because you were talking about the mathematical probability, but it doesn't matter what the probability was because we have all the evidence for evolution already.
How old are you?
54.
Okay. I'll just warn you, you are more than free and welcome to disagree with myself and other people on the panel.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But if you dodge a reasonable question that I pose to you.
Can I pose you one?
Yeah, you may, but I'm not done yet.
Okay.
If you dodge reasonable questions, that means you're cheating and you're going to get kicked.
Okay.
So what is, and don't think you're going to educate me on evolution. Okay, I'm 63. Yeah. I'm as well acquainted with the theory of evolution as one can be, short of an undergraduate or a graduate degree. Okay.
But if you
in fact, right now, I'm in the midst of reading a pro-evolutionary book by the author of a university textbook on evolution, Douglas Futuma. Okay, so I'm well acquainted as with the theory of evolution as an amateur can get. Okay, so don't think you're going to educate me. But what is your evidence that evolution is true?
Endogenous retroviruses.
Okay. Do you think I haven't heard that before?
No, I'm just want your explanation.
Okay. Well, first of all, when you call them endogenous retroviruses, you're begging the question that these coding sequences are retroviral insertions and that they are indicative of common descent. Now, I'm going to ask you a question and think very carefully before you answer.
Yeah.
You want to say that these coding sequences, these ERVs, are indicative of common descent or markers for indicating common descent?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, well, no, they don't have to be. But we'll get to that momentarily. Now, I can just simply say that the similar coding sequences are simply the result of a statistical coincidence.
Right.
What's your response to that?
Okay, so mathematically, because you liked maths before, the chances of one marker, retrovirus marker, being in exactly the same position in a human and an ape, for example, is about 1 in 20 billion. and we
Okay,
share
stop,
200,
stop.
and we have
You went for the
250 of
you went.
those.
I know
We
you
have
went
over
for the bait.
250 of
You went
those.
for the bait, my friend. You did precisely as I knew you would do.
Mm.
You're now making a probabilistic argument that the
As you did before. As
improbability.
you did
Listen
before.
carefully. Listen to me carefully. That's not actually my position. But what I'm telling you is you went for the bait, and I know you would, because every time somebody brings up ERVs, they go for the bait. Now, what you're saying is that you, because of the improbability of chance producing the striking similarities between these coding sequences, common descent is to be preferred. Well, here's the problem. The odds of random mutations building the animal kingdom, the genome of the animal kingdom, is by orders of magnitude greater than 1 in 10, followed by tens of thousands of zeros. So what this means is, if you continue to hold that the coding sequences labeled ERVs are to be considered markers of common descent, because of the improbability of mutations producing similar coding sequences, if you're going to reason by probability, you're going to die by probability, which means that if you look, dude, listen, I know this subject area all too well. If you're going to reason by probability, then you're not going to use probability in one instance and run away from another. What are the odds of random mutations coding for a single protein of 200 amino acids?
Well, it doesn't matter because that's happened and we've seen it.
Okay,
We've
sir,
got
okay, that's
we've got
strike
fossils that
one. I
prove
told
the
you,
evolutionary
listen to
history.
me. You're not listening to me. That's strike one. I told you if you dodge, I'm going to kick you. That's strike one. What are the odds of random mutations producing the precise linear coding sequence for a protein that has 200 amino acids?
I don't know.
Okay, so the answer is 1 in 10, followed by much more than 200 zeros. Now,
Yeah. Okay. Can I answer that though?
no, well, that's
Can
not
I
a
answer the
debatable.
question?
Listen to me carefully.
Can I
Do
answer the
you
question?
accept? Look, dude, I'm not done yet. Do
Can I
you
answer the question?
accept? Okay, have a nice day. You're done. You're done. Okay, goodbye.
They can't help it. They can't help it.
They cannot help themselves. You see, they want to reason by probability, but then when we show them the beyond astronomical improbability of mutations building the genome of the animal kingdom in toto, they completely ignore probabilistic reasoning, which means they only employ probabilistic reasoning when it is to their advantage. I'm not saying evolution didn't happen because of improbability. I'm just simply saying is, if you're going to reason by probability, you got to live by probability. Okay?
What's up, man?
Let's see. Oh no, you're done. You're done.
Allowed to ask you questions?
Not you. Okay, bye. Yeah, hold on a second.
I'm not allowed to ask you a question at all.
No, you can't. You have
Determine
too
something
much of a
exterior
history
is
of
true,
trolling.
Darth. That's one question.
Bye, little boy. Bye, little
You
boy.
determine something exterior is true.
No, he has a long history of trolling. Okay. See, this is one of the tactics that they pull that I don't pull, and it's cheating. It's called stall, dodge, and delay. Stall, dodge, and delay.
I love when you go there. They got the laminated card.
The laminated incredulity card. Why is it laminated? Because if it wasn't, it would be in tatters from pulling it out so many times.
How much is the renewal fee if they do destroy it somehow?
Oh no, they just print it up on their inkjet printer.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
It's printed by the authority of Hewlett Packard.
They're in their tote bag.
Or it's either Hewlett Packard or it's who's the other printing company? A big printer. What's the name of the printer company?
Ooh.
Oh, what is it? It's a huge name in printers.
What is
All right, I'll tell you in a
something?
sec.
Yeah. Canon. Somebody said it's 7. Good job. HP, yeah. Xerox, yeah, there you go. Oh wow, we had brain farts like crazy just now. Xerox, yeah.
It's yeah. Well, I was thinking of Epson, but Canon would also be correct.
Yeah, some of the people.
Hewlett Packard, Canon, and Epson.
Yeah.
You notice how people just want to look. They don't say, "Oh, there's all this evidence." No, there's not. There's only pretend evidence. They look at all the fossils, and they don't realize that they've been totally scammed. The fossil record exemplifies stasis, not transition, and this is widely recognized among even elite paleontologists. It's just that people, the way that they've been educated, they have been led to believe that there is a robust series of transitional forms to support the theory of evolution. The answer is there's not. Showing you an artistic rendition of horse fossil progression does not mean that there's a robust series. Yeah, they have some horses that are bigger, some medium-sized, some smaller, and some of them have a different amount of bones in their legs. But that does not make for a robust series of numerous successive transitional forms. Likewise with the aquatic skeletons of extinct creatures. We have some exemplars of them, but we don't have a great deal of intermediary species. If this were true, if there was a vast number of intermediary species, exemplars within the fossil record, then people like George Gaylord Simpson and one of the King Kongs of evolution, Stephen Jay Gould and Niles Eldred, never would have formulated the sub-evolutionary theory of punctuated equilibrium, which attempts to explain away the absence of these transitional forms by saying evolution happens in such rapid bursts, it doesn't leave behind transitional markers. Well, if the transitional forms are there in the fossil record, then punctuated equilibrium as a sub-evolutionary theory would be completely superfluous. So why was one of the greatest experts in paleontology and evolution in the latter part of the 20th century until his death in the early part of the 2000s, why was he championing a sub-evolutionary theory attempting to explain the dearth or the absence of numerous transitional forms? You see, people can't bring themselves to believe that they have been misinformed about evolution in terms of watching documentaries or school system. It's just like Muslims can't believe that their entire culture and ancestry and nationality has been deceived for hundreds of years.
Yeah. It's funny they complain to us about like indoctrinating kids into Christianity, but then they like indoctrinate kids into evolution.
I'm reading a book right now by the late great Dwayne Gish, and he's just documenting how much of it, what is taught in evolution is propaganda. It's not hard scientific fact, but it's presented as though it's a fact. It's the title of the book, by the way, is called "The Fossils Say No." Great, good book so far, really good.
This goes back to what we say about how they like whenever there's evidence that goes against their theory, they just call it an anomaly and they work around it like every time. So then,
the number one selling principle for evolution to people is the fact that it is accepted so pervasively and taught so dogmatically. When it comes to the actual evidence, when you hear the other side, the so-called evidence that they present is extremely weak. It's just that they present the evidence without respect to any opposition.
So that would
Look,
be
if
like
you
the
if you if
definition.
you don't take the time to start reading articles or books that call into question books that are written from an intellectual point of view, that call into question the so-called robust scientific evidence for evolution, and they give detailed explanations why the so-called evidence does not constitute the powerful evidence. If you don't expose yourself to that, you're not going to know. You're going to think what you've been told, that there's a mountain of evidence. This is why people say there's a mountain of evidence. Do you know that even experts in evolution, there are top people, alive as well as dead evolutionists, who have publicly admitted the very serious absence of powerful evidence for evolution, in spite of the fact that they devoutly believe it. But you're not going to get a school teacher to tell you that. This is why it's so nauseating that people like William Lane Craig has bought into it hook, line, and sinker. You know, Craig is not the conservative Bible believing apologist that people think he is. I'm not saying he's not a Christian, but he's not as conservative as people think he is. He doesn't believe in a literal Genesis chapter 1, doesn't believe in a worldwide flood. He doesn't believe that that God fashioned Eve genetically by taking some material from Adam's side, right? He mocks that. That's William Lane Craig. When William Lane Craig came on camera explaining how he was boning up for writing his book In Search of the Historical Adam, and he had to really study up on evolution, he showed on camera a top-level university textbook used all over the world on evolution, entitled Evolution, by the main author is Douglas Futuma, if I'm not mispronouncing his word. I'm reading Douglas Futuma's book called Science on Trial, which is a fake title. It should be Evolution on Trial. And he's a staunch defender of evolution. The guy's a rabid materialist, okay, probably an atheist. He's also a staunch proponent of the LGBT mafia, right? And this is the kind of source that he's using from Futuma. Not that Futuma cannot be considered, quote, an expert on the concept of evolution. I wouldn't take that away from him. But, you know, we got to be careful when we're dealing with dogmatic atheists, materialistic humanists, you know, when they come bringing, so-called scientific evidence for evolution. Remember, beware Greeks bearing gifts.
Right. Well, people just take what science says as a gospel truth. They don't think critically about these things. There's a lot of prejudicial conjecture in science that you don't
Yeah,
realize.
they don't understand the history of science is littered with the numerous corpses of certain paradigms that were powerfully held, but then for one reason or another, they get abandoned and it's replaced with a new idea. Like, for example, I was just reading in the book, The Fossils Say No, there was a concept in physics called the law of parity, that it doesn't matter that certain physical reactions in physics will be the same whether they're left or right, whether they're a mirror image of themselves, okay? And it was accepted as a law of parity. Well, somebody developed certain Asian scientists developed an experiment, and they broke the law of parity. They showed that it's not true in all instances. It may be true in some instances, but not in all instances. Okay, and so if they had not done these experiments, then till this day, people would still believe in the law of parity. Hey, Massive, troll one more time and you're going to be muted. It must be sad that you're so intellectually lacking that you don't have the intestinal fortitude to come up here and disagree with me, other than you sitting there doing your own mental manipulation by trolling in a text. Maybe if you had some balls, you would come up on stage and challenge me. And by the way, if anyone wants to read about this, you can read a book called Refuting Evolution by Jonathan Safarti. I'm also reading a book that's a couple of decades old now. It's called The Fossils Say No by Dwayne Gish. You can find that book floating around on the internet. You can also find it at archive.org. The Fossils Say No. You see, when people couch things in scientific terms, the gullible and the uneducated, buy into it.
Yeah, I almost feel like they've purposely keep it's an indoctrination where they don't tell anyone about the criticisms of science or the problems of science, and they just act like science is perfect.
Well,
That's
they're not going to do it because their attitude is, well, evolution is a fact, and we just don't want to undermine people's confidence, right? They don't want to expose people to robust opposition. See, people don't understand this. Notice the guy before me where he talks about ERVs. Okay, when they bring up ERVs, endogenous retroviruses, they're begging the question there because they're already thinking that these coding sequences are retroviral insertions in the distant ancestral past, and they show up as markers in humans and chimpanzees. So the very mention of ERVs is begging the question. The fact of it is uh, they're not necessarily viral injections. They may be coding sequences that are similar to, or even may have morphed into viral-like states of affairs or terms of active viruses. Because what's the origin of viruses? Well, the answer is the origin of viruses is probably genetic code gone run amok. No, when they say that they're retroviral insertions, that's just an extrapolation. That's an interpretation, right? Look, do you know that there have been a long, long history of failed evolutionary predictions? Okay, especially when you're dealing with, for example, um, so-called vestigiality. Do you know how many times they've been wrong, time and time again?
I don't know, but I know that science is consistently wrong.
Welcome, James. What would you like to say?
You're like totally fucking wrong, dude.
Let's see if you can last and bring an intelligent case.
Okay. I'm sure that you've just like hyper fixated on some like really niche thing where you think you have like more knowledge of
Notice how you're not getting to the point.
whatever, dude.
What you just said is a form of showboating. Explain to me how I'm wrong.
Bro, what are you talking about?
See, more stall, dodge, and delay. I thought you could back up where you asserted I'm wrong. Where am I wrong?
Dude, on the entire subject, like you
You're
have to
dodging
know.
again. Look, aren't you embarrassed that you keep on dodging?
No, I'm embarrassed that you're a grown adult who refuses to
No, you
accept
haven't. You haven't
reality.
demonstrated. Listen carefully. You're just embarrassing yourself because you're just repeating the generalizations, accusations, and generalizations. Give me the specifics of how and where I'm wrong.
Here's the beauty of it. I don't have to because the
You're done. You just
entirety of
got
the
cooked, boy.
scientific
Guess
community has
what?
already
You
done it
just
for
got
me.
taken out of the deep fat fryer. You just admitted that you cannot back up your accusation.
Because I'm not an expert who dedicates my whole life
Then
to it,
how do
but
you
I'm
know that
willing
I'm
to.
wrong?
Because the entire scientific community has proven that you're wrong. Study
You
after
know, okay, all
study.
right. Okay, all right. Before we continue, when people say stuff like that, it's typically a marker of one of two things. Either a complete lack of education in the history of philosophy of science, okay, even at an amateur level, or that you're just young and educated. Are you under the age of 25?
It might blow your mind to learn that I'm not under the age of 25,
Oh,
actually.
okay, then you're completely uneducated.
That's
Do you
I
know that
actually
most,
I have I
listen carefully. Do you know that many ideas throughout the history of science have been overturned? Do you know, I'm going to ask you a very simple question. Let's see how knowledgeable you are in the general principles of the philosophy of science.
Oh shit, you're about to own me.
Are there, okay, so you're just going to turn into a stand-up comedian. I'm trying to
No,
respond to
yeah,
you
I am, dude. That's
intellectually,
what I'm
and
here
you're just
for.
being, well, then you got nothing. You got nothing
I've
except
got the entire
sarcasm.
scientific community backing me,
That
dude.
doesn't,
What do
okay,
you
listen
have?
carefully. Listen
Some nut
carefully.
job like conspiracy pages?
Was the entire, okay, the entire scientific community used to believe in something called the law of parity. Were they right or wrong?
Bro, I don't know what the fuck that is, but I
The
doubt anyone's
law of
believed it for the past
parity
100
was
years.
a, listen carefully.
You're like,
You,
oh, I read this
all right,
Wikipedia page at
dude,
1 in the morning. Oh,
this
I
is your
got
final
you.
warning. This is your final warning,
Oh, please
okay?
don't kick me out.
Either you're going to conduct yourself like the adult that you claim you are, or you're going to continue to act like a buffoon teenager. What's it going to be?
Oh, I don't know, sir. Please don't
Okay,
kick me out of this
yeah,
live.
you're blocked.
Oh
Total moron.
Oh shit. Please no. Please give me another chance.
See, you got nothing.
Oh, I
You
got
wasted your
nothing.
time coming up here. You got nothing. See, he wants to come up here and saying I'm wrong, and I'm like, hey, I'm all ears. Go ahead. And all he just does is giggle and jiggle and guffaw and laugh like a little schoolgirl, and he's got nothing. You know, don't come up here and accuse me that I'm wrong on the day of my daughter's wedding and tell me you want to be friends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you're gonna be
Look,
funny, you have to have.
he knew, and by the way, that was an inside joke. He knew he had nothing. What he's arguing for, you see, this is the same problem that the Muslims suffer from. It's called groupthink. Groupthink is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's a good thing. But groupthink is not wrong. If the entire scientific community is not to be questioned, then I guess Copernicus and Galileo were actually wrong, weren't they? Because Copernicus and Galileo and a few others were bucking the entire scientific community about the Ptolemaic or the geocentric view of the solar system and the universe.
People just get like stuck on this black and white type mentality, and they can't understand nuance.
They what they want to believe that they've been brainwashed. Science. Scientists are not controlled by biases. They're as clean as the wind-driven snow. They don't have prejudice. They don't have a priori commitments. Do you know that most scientists strongly lean into the area of naturalism and materialism and atheism?
They literally treat like this amorphous scientific community of it as if it's like the god that's like telling
It
them.
is it's a royal priesthood who is dispensing the truth from on high, from the all high and mighty law, the Lord of physics. Not God. The Lord of physics is physics itself. Physics is the Lord. Because people have a proclivity or a predilection toward naturalism, if a certain idea is held pervasively or in consensus within science, and it helps to facilitate one's predilection what was the other word I used? Predilection. Predilection, or what was it? What was the other one I used? I'm tired. I can't remember. Anyway, um, it may be the case that what is held in consensus is true, but it's not necessarily the case. Do you know how many powerful evidences for evolution have been promoted as powerful evidence that have been later turned out to be falsified? People have no idea.
Lucy comes to mind.
Oh, Lucy's a big joke. You know that they depict Lucy artistically as having human feet. Lucy wasn't found with any feet. The hip bone of Lucy was deformed. So one of the main guys, I don't know if it was the discoverer of
Was that
Lucy,
one of
but
the
somebody
first
closely
big?
related to that,
Was that one of
he
the first
created a
big?
plaster cast of it, and he reshaped the hip. Okay, because Lucy was not a complete skeleton, and certain parts of Lucy were found uh, in long distance from other parts that they claim are part of Lucy.
Was that the first famous evolution hoax? Was that the first big one? Was Lucy?
Oh no! There are other ones that go like Piltdown Man, Nebraska Man,
I think it's
Peking
funny.
Man. These are all frauds. Lucy is of more recent vintage.
It's funny they
It's
call
the
it.
discovery of I don't know the technical term for it, but it's like an Australopithecus, either afarensis or there's another term for Australia that I can't remember. Okay, it's an Australopithecine, which means it's an ape-like or a monkey-like creature, right? And afarensis I think that refers to that it's from the region of Africa versus like Australia. But the I don't remember if the hip bone was complete. I don't think it was. It was a partial hip bone, but they said they claimed it was crushed, and that they created a plaster cast of it, and he reshaped it back to its original state. No, what he did was he carved it out so that it would have more human-like features. The problem is they don't want to bring themselves to believe that something that is so false could gain such pervasiveness and be held in wide consent. It goes to the root of things that so many smart, educated people could be so wrong. They're trading off of the great discoveries and inventions of science and chemistry and physics, and because of the label science, they think that anything labeled science is of the same intellectual value to explain things.
Like they treat prejudicial conjecture the same as if it was like Newton's like
Look, the
demonstrated law.
theory of evolution has prepped and primed the minds of people throughout the world, and especially Western civilization. It's priming their minds to think repeatedly that man is not made in the image of God. Man is an evolved animal. Man is at the pinnacle of the natural world. Man is king of the hill. And this is going to feed right into the one world government and the Antichrist.
It's the whole idea of like a autonomy, being thinking you're independent operator.
Unless you have a reason or a bias against evolution, right? And you haven't heard the counter evidence, then you're going to tend to believe through groupthink and confirmation bias that all of these smart people wouldn't be deliberately deceiving me. Who said they're deliberately doing it? Maybe these people are driven by their own naturalistic, materialistic, a priori atheistic considerations that man is alone, that man is the king of the hill, right? No one's coming to save us, as Carl Sagan says, right? And some of the big names in evolution in the 20th century, names that I could mention that you guys wouldn't know, like Theodosius Dabansky, materialist atheist. Haldane, another atheist. Darwin was an atheist. T.H. Huxley was an atheist. Carl Sagan was an atheist. Although Carl Sagan was not an anthropologist or an evolutionary scientist, he was an astronomer. But some of the big names in the history of evolution, almost all of them were atheists. And those who were not outright atheists, like the recently deceased Francisco Ayala, huge name in the promotion of evolution. He's an atheist. Another big name in terms of collegiate textbooks, as I mentioned, Douglas Futima. I'm pretty sure he's a materialist, if not an atheist. One of the top people in the 20th century who was a strong evolutionary advocate clearly stated that the reason why the scientists and scientifically minded people accept the theory of evolution is not because of the weight or the power of the evidence. It's because they find the alternative absolutely unacceptable and not credible. That is, meaning special creation. So all they've got is a crappy theory of mechanistic descent. And if you refuse to acknowledge or even consider special creation or intelligent design, then when you're presented with a really crappy theory that's really pathetic, when you actually look at the evidence instead of the way it's propagandized, then something that's really crappy looks pretty good when that's all you've got, because the alternative is horrifying to you, that is special creation. Okay, that's a good question. What about the broken gene for vitamin C? Well, the argument is that this broken gene in humans and chimp is a marker of common descent, which, if there was common descent, that would be a plausible explanation. But it could be the case that this broken gene is defective because of its place in the genome and is prone to a breakdown given its location in the genome, right? In creatures that have a similar anatomy and physiology. Okay? So just because something hypothetically could be a marker of common descent doesn't mean that it is a marker of common descent. There could be other plausible explanations for similarities, such as certain broken genes, right? The reason for broken genes, a broken gene just could be a pure happenstance, or it could be because of the way that the DNA is configured, that some genes are less prone versus other genes are more prone to malfunctioning, but that don't produce a lethal result, okay? So because certain genes are prone to a malfunction, because of its location on the genome and other circumstances, if it breaks in one location, it could break in another. Okay, it's kind of like, and this is a poor analogy, but you get flat tires on bicycles, motorcycles, and cars, right? Mm-hmm. Because they all have a similar way that they can break. Here's an interesting thing is this. Certain genes, when they have a breakdown, it's lethal. Other genes, it's not lethal.
What's your response to the salamander thing in California?
What about it?
How do you respond to that? Where they say, like, you can see, like, the there's a speciation taking place because the southern salamanders can't breed with the northern, but they can with the middle. And the middle can breed with both successfully.
That's perfectly consistent with common descent, creationism, and intelligent design.
Okay.
So they've changed the definition of speciation. Okay.
But could that happen? That couldn't happen to humans. Like, humans are all over the world, and we're not like turning into a different species.
Well,
yeah. breed.
The point the point is nobody's disputing that you can have variations in reproduction in the genetic code where you have in Mendelian genetics where you have dominant, recessive, and dormant genes. And there's more information in the genome than is actually executed in the phenotype. So through successive reproduction, you can have certain genes that are activated, some deactivated, producing variants in the phenotype. Okay? So variation in reproduction in terms of size, shape, colorization, length of limbs or beaks for certain creatures that have greater plasticity than others is perfectly consistent with creationism and intelligent design. The fact that it's commensurate with evolution doesn't mean, therefore, evolution is true. One among several of the biggest factors why people are so reluctant and have a hissy fit that we're challenging evolution is because they semi-worship at the feet of all these scientists who give them televisions, telescopes, telephones, and so on and so forth. Yeah, I like science like the rest of the modern guy, but I don't think the clean as the web-driven snow. When you're dealing with evolution, you're not dealing with the same kind of science as you are chemistry and physics, where you can have observation testing and repeatability and the potential application of falsification.
Darth, do you even know what you're saying?
I do.
I don't think you do.
Okay, well, if you're going to troll, that's the quickest way you're going to get blocked.
Not
Okay.
trolling. You're just saying things that aren't true.
Okay, good. Tell me one thing that I've said that is not true.
That evolution isn't the same science, that it can't be observed.
That's correct. How do you? Okay, listen carefully. Before we proceed, I'd like to know how old you are.
I'm 20.
Okay, can you observe the past?
Nope.
Okay. When you say evolution, do you mean mere biological variation and reproduction, or do you mean a universal common ancestry?
I mean change over time in species.
No, that's not an answer to my question.
It literally is.
Okay, so then if you're talking about change over time, how do you observe that?
Easily. I could give you an example.
Okay, so it is in the present?
Yes, it is past,
Okay,
present,
so
future. It
guess
is
what?
continuous.
When we're talking about evolution, we're talking about a universal common ancestry, which is the past. So what you've just done is a mistake. Listen, please don't interrupt me. Okay, what you're doing is you're committing the very mistake that most evolutionists do. It's called the fallacy of equivocation. Listen carefully. You are defining evolution in such a way, in such a narrow way, that it can refer to either mere biological variation of the genetic information that's already there, producing a horizontal change, versus the biological variation that will incrementally build the genome from scratch to higher and higher levels of hierarchies. These are two different things. I'm going to ask you a very simple question. Can you observe a universal common ancestry?
That would have to do more with abiogenesis, the origin of all that stuff. We could talk about.
I'm
We can
63
talk about.
years old.
Hey,
I'm
Darth,
going to interrupt you.
you
I'm
like to
about
bitch
to
a lot
kick you.
about how
I'm
people
about to
interrupt
kick
you, yet
I'm
you
about
interrupt
to
everyone.
kick you.
He
I'm
doesn't.
about to
You
kick
just.
you. Okay,
Jesus
goodbye.
Christ, dude.
Goodbye, little boy.
All right, bye, old man.
Yeah, bye. You see, they just play dodgeball and they immediately go into rapid fire community college lecture. They equivocate. They equivocate on observing the present, which is the same as extrapolating about an evolutionary past. You can't observe the past. Okay? You can conjecture, you can extrapolate about the past, but you can't observe the past. So here's another 20-year-old genius who thinks he knows more about evolution. So rather than show just a little bit of modesty and cooperation with me, the moderator, he decided that he was going to get up in my face, and having known that I fully warned him about to kick him, he just decided to keep on being in my face, knowing full well he was going to get kicked. But I've dealt with him before. He's a little twit. Yeah, you're not coming up again. If you had showed a little bit more modesty and deference, which you probably don't even know what that word means, then you would have remained on stage. But you decided not to show some deference. I love these teenage males and these young 20-somethings that they think they know so much more about evolution. See, you know what the thing is? They've really been propagandized to believe that if you disagree with evolution, it's not because you have good grounds to argue against it. It's because you really don't understand. If you understood evolution, you'd accept it just like all of us mind-numbed evolutionary robots. Evolution is so glorious. If you only understood it, you would believe it like all of us.
One of us. One of us. One of us.
Yeah, if you're gonna troll in the text, you're going to get muted.
This is always like Craig. It's like these people, they feel social pressure. Like, oh, I gotta believe the thing, because if I don't believe the thing, then everyone will think I'm crazy.
Yeah. Tech Coder, you're spamming now. Do it again and you're gone. You see, the acceptance of evolution is a gateway for them to glorify their naturalism. Now, granted, there are some people who do believe in God and are gullible and fall for evolution, but many people accept it. It's their gateway to naturalistic humanism.
Well, that's because Christians, they're always like trying to make the Bible fit worldly standards. Like we see this throughout history. We see this with what about the priest at Trump's church service? Right?
What a moron!
Yeah.
What a moron! You know.
So it's because it's like the temptation of Jesus, where the Satan's like, "Prove to me you're God." It's like people want to submit to these like worldly reason and worldly thinking, rather than admit that we can't reason without God. We're it's always about, oh, I can do this without. Oh, I don't need God. I can do this. Oh, I don't need God. I can do this on my own. I can save myself. I can free myself. I can justify myself.
That's a contradiction in terms. Saying thanks to evolution, you're immutable. It's a contradiction in terms.
Is this our friend coming back here with all these accounts?
What's that?
Oh, is that guy, the harasser guy, back in the chat? I noticed a lot of people are getting banned.
Not at the moment. I'm talking to somebody else.
Hunter was great. You caught him equivocating on the term evolution. You asked him the same question again in a way that he can't equivocate. You asked him if he has observed a universal common ancestor to force him to not equivocate, and then he refuses to answer the question.
Yeah, a young 20-something-year-old caught with his hand in the cookie jar.
He immediately started babbling about some other subject.
I'm 63, and I'm always asking myself, why do people choose one belief system rather than another? And I just don't simply mean in terms of Christianity versus atheism. Why do people choose certain political views rather than the other? And people tend to gravitate. This is a tendency, it's not an absolute. They tend to gravitate toward beliefs that they would rather be true. Okay? And so that's why you have people tend to be more leftist than anything else. You tend to people to be more rightist than.
And they also tend to think that if they believe something, then it must be rational, then it must be true, because they couldn't be believing something that's not rational. Right?
I wouldn't believe something that was false. No.
The Proverbs has a verse that says something to the effect of like, the one who is hungry for truth will eat what is bitter and what is sweet. Like some people avoid eating the bitter truths, right? And they just go to the sweet truths. And that creates like a really distorted view of the world.
Well, the theory of evolution comes to them with the imprimatur of science. But when you examine it, it's not like other sciences. It's not observable, testable, and repeatable. I mean, just think about it. They want to believe that random mutations could incrementally build the genome of the animal kingdom. And they have no idea how long the linear coding sequences are for proteins and the genome of the animal kingdom. They have no understanding of how long it is. Okay? They have no conception of the statistical improbability. Notice how I catch these people all the time when they invoke ERVs, and I bait them by saying, well, the ERVs just happen. The coding sequences are similar between humans and chip. It's just a statistical similarity because of random mutations. And they go, oh no, it's too improbable. Well, wait a minute. If that's too improbable, then you're going to have to reject evolution, because evolution is by numerous orders of magnitude unimaginably improbable compared to the so-called coding sequences labeled ERVs. You see, 1 minute they'll employ probabilistic reasoning for a certain short range of coding sequences, but when the improbability is next to impossible for the entire length of the genome of the animal kingdom, they abandon probabilistic reasoning. The statistical improbability is almost incalculable, but we can just start with individual proteins. A 200 amino acid protein would be greater than 1 in 10 followed by 200 zeros. That's just for one protein. When you extrapolate that out for the entire coding sequences of the entire genome of the animal kingdom, even accounting for common ancestry, the coding sequences are so unimaginably long in terms of their biological passwords. The idea that chance could facilitate this within a large and old universe, there's not enough time. Even one of the world's greatest experts on evolution and microbiology says it's next to impossible absent a multiverse. Why would one of the world's greatest experts on evolution and microbiology say that evolution and self-replicating systems is virtually impossible to occur, but with a multiverse it's guaranteed? Why would you even bother mentioning a multiverse? No, Dr. Koonin is an anti-creationist. He's an anti-intelligent design advocate. I quote him not out of context, but because he has such a powerful belief that evolution happened, he's resorting to special pleading, is what people tend to do. He recognizes the near virtual statistical impossibility of mutations to build the entire genome of the animal kingdom, even within a universe where there might be 1 trillion star systems or 1 trillion galaxies. That's not going to, that people don't understand that that's not enough time and trials. The longer the genomic sequence is, the more improbable it becomes each additional unit of information that has to code for complex anatomy and physiology. See, people have been brainwashed. They've never been presented cogently or in a robust fashion the combinatorial problem of mutations building the genome aided by selection processes. They've never been taught it. It's been all but ignored because they're taught that evolution is a fact. So from those people who are trying to promote and propagandize evolution, not suggesting that they're trying to deceive people, but they're nonetheless evolutionary propagandists. Why discuss the mind-boggling combinatorial problem when evolution happened? They'll say, who cares how improbable it is? It still happened. That's the same reason why Dr. Eugene Koonin invokes a multiverse. Oh, a multiverse did it. It's the multiverse of the gaps. Welcome, Edgemaster. What would you like to say?
I just wanted to say T-Jump slammed you on your neck.
Really?
Horribly.
I don't recall
T-Jump
that.
beat the fuck out of you in a dialectic.
Yeah, I don't recall
He
that. Can you
beat
explain
the
that to me?
dog shit out of you, Darth
Oh, I know.
Dawkins.
I heard you.
He beat you so fucking bad, Darth Dawkins.
Oh,
You're
I
so
know.
dog
I
shit.
heard you say
You were
that.
so dog shit, Darth Dawkins. T-Jump
Yeah, really?
slammed you on your fucking cranium. He slammed you. What happened, Darth Dawkins?
Are you engaging in hate speech toward me right now?
I'm just saying he beat the fuck out of you in a
Sounds like
dialectic,
hate
big
speech
dog.
to me. Should I report you for hate speech?
Report me. I don't give a fuck, Darth Dawkins, with your
Okay,
fucking
good. Well,
stinky
welcome,
booty ass
welcome. There you
script.
go.
With
You
your
just told me
stinky
to do
booty
so.
ass
Good.
argumentative script. Nobody gives a
Okay,
fuck
guess
about your
what?
script.
Guess what I'm
Your
doing right
script is
now?
ass. T-Jump beat the fuck out of you. T-Jump
could you
slammed you.
you
Why do
could
you
you
still
give the
debate?
example from the
You're a
debate about
fucking
what was
T-Jump
said?
victim.
Could you give the example of how T Jump defeated Darth in the debate? Can you
I
give
don't
the
need to give
quotes, please?
justifications. You can go watch it yourself.
Yeah, let's review it. Let's review it.
Prove you watched it right now. Go ahead and prove that.
Go over it. We'll go
Prove
over
you
it.
watched it.
Okay, look, can I ask you a question?
No, you're a T-Jump victim.
Okay. Did you know that T-Jump told me that since he rejects that God accounts for the fundamental parameters of existence, he told me that reality is what dictates the fundamental parameters of existence. Do you agree?
Yeah, that could be the case. It's possible.
Okay. Do you know that in a later video with another Christian, he says he has no idea what the fundamental nature of reality is?
Can you prove he ever said that?
Yeah, it's on a videotape. You can see him interacting with.
Yeah,
It's
which
T-Jump.
videotape?
I'm giving you the answer. Okay, so you want to stop being rude and let me give you the name? It's called
just post the
T-Jump.
link.
Okay, have a nice day. We're gonna
Post
block
the
you.
link. That's all I'm asking.
No, you're done. You're done.
You're a T-Jump victim.
Yeah. And you're an example of parents who fail to civilize their young man. Okay. No, T-Jump did nothing of the kind, and this guy doesn't believe for 1 second.
Yeah, he doesn't even believe what he's saying.
When you listen to the theatrics and the dramatics, he doesn't even believe what he's saying.
Yeah, he wouldn't give any specifics in the debate, and that's because he can't.
Because he's just look. It's amazing that these people get up there. It's a form of mental masturbation. They come up here and they just troll. Okay. They can't stand what we argue for. They can't stand the fact that we are, attacking their precious idols. So they realize that they can't intellectually rebut what we're saying. So they have to come up here and just do a vulgar, obscene vaudeville act. So T-Jump said to Eli Ayala that he didn't know what the ultimate nature of reality was. But then he tells me that reality is what dictates all that is and cannot be, but he doesn't know what it is. If he doesn't know what it is, how does he know that reality dictates what is and cannot be, and that whatever reality is, it constitutes not being God, but he doesn't know what it is? Does that sound like somebody who trounced me?
He says he doesn't have an epistemology or a worldview, that he just has sense data granted to him.
Well, I would be ashamed to get up and
Pete, hold on a
assert that
second.
someone
Pete,
lost a
stop sending an
debate.
invite request.
Yeah, I would be ashamed to get up and assert that someone lost a debate without being able to cite specifics. Right, but this guy's just shameless.
We could go over the debate. We could review it.
Yeah, there's been more than one, I believe.
Look, T jump is so nauseating. It's like nails on the chalkboard. That's how bad he is. I don't mind reviewing videos, even debates that I've had with people, but you know, at one point he's so weird, he's so strange. I asked him the A word, if he was the A word, okay, and it's a term that comes from behavioral studies, and he admitted, yeah, I have that syndrome, and I said, why am I not surprised? Okay. Maybe he and Mark Reed are blood brothers.
Not a good one. To go over would be like the Destiny one. I mean, we could do like
I
Grandma.
do. I want to go over videos, but at the moment, at this point, I'm really tired.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed going over that Tom Rabbit video where Jay Dyer just absolutely see, even in the face of Jay Dyer completely eviscerating Tom Rabbit pulls the Black Knight syndrome. Okay.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
it's only a
that Jay Dyer video is a good example of like it's not like you're the problem, Darth, right? Because Jay Dyer is basically making the same argument, and Tom is doing the same, like deceitful, and you can hear Jay getting like frustrated with it.
Yeah,
It's just that total non-responsiveness to the argument, just ignoring it.
It's an ignoring the content of what Jay is presenting while faking that you're responding to it. Jay just simply says, listen, that you just don't have any worldview to put on the table.
I probably already have seen it, but what was the name of it?
It's on Tom Rabbit's channel. Just type in Tom Rabbit versus Jay Dyer. Jay Dyer eviscerates, and I don't say that to be dramatic or theatrical or to have it be clickbait. He eviscerates Tom Rabbit. Jay tells him, you know, all you're just simply is postulating a hypothetical. A hypothetical is not a worldview. And he said, once, you know, Jay basically expressed to him in academic terms, and he was good in when he said it, the moment you have a God who is not perfect in his revelation, then it's game over. You don't have a viable system for truth, reason, or intelligibility.
Tom was making an external critique while trying to like smuggle it in as an internal critique, and Jay kept going like, "Dude, you're assuming things that would be like mutually exclusive with my position, so that's not."
You know, this line of reasoning that he's giving is the very kind of reasoning that you would expect teenage minds who confabulate together of how to construct a pseudo-intellectual philosophical refutation that has no substance at all. You know, they look, I'm not trying to be mean, but when I heard Tom Rabbit, you know, give this line of reasoning, which I've heard him say before, it's no different than the confabulations that you'll find teenagers doing. It's that pathetic. The moment you depart from a model of reality where God is, the self-revealing God is perfect in all respects, including that he's always truth revealing. The moment you depart from that, you are now operating from and speaking from a worldview where whatever you submit that you know could be untrue and a deception, because you're not in a revelatory environment from a perfect, always truth revealing God.
He did the same thing with me. He's like, well, what if Jesus was born in Rome instead of Galilee or something? Would that falsify?
You know, there comes a point in time when other Christians are going to have to follow what I do and stop talking with these pathological liars. It's not that we stop talking with them because they're intellectually opposing the Christian worldview. They're just engaging in pure lying, deception, and sophistry. And we need to stop glorifying these people and dignify them, that they're worthy of continued response. CT Luster, you better come up here and back up your accusation, because if you don't, you're going to be muted. Come on up here, CT. Jacob Essen, come up and defend that evolution is proven. Come on up. If either one of you do not come up, you're going to get muted. Okay, welcome to our mute button. It never ceases to amaze me, the never-ending cavalcade of trolling teenage males trapped in young men's bodies.
Well, not really doing anything. They're like,
All right, guys, I'll be back.
yeah, I think I'm gonna shut her down. I'll talk to you later.